Welcome to In Conversation with MANWAR podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Do Not Be a Bystander campaign. You can join us in raising awareness about bullying by visiting the donotbeabystander.com, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay informed about upcoming episodes. Today's participants are Sharon, Ridan, and Adian. Our special guest for today's episode is Rob Wells.
Welcome to our Bullying Awareness podcast. I'm your host, MANWAR Khan. Today, I'm joined by three young individuals who are ready to share their thoughts and insights on the topic of bystander. They all have the same goal, eliminating bullying from school and communities. These young individuals are very passionate about addressing this issue, and that's why they are here today to participate in this podcast. Today's participants are Ridan, Sharon, and Adian. Thank you, Ridan, Sharon, and Adian, for joining us today. Before we continue, I would like to introduce our special guest today's podcast, Rob Wells. Rob will shed some lights on the topic of bystanders and give some tips and advices to our viewers and our participants. Rob, I would like to say a little bit about Rob here before we start. Rob has lived all his life in Alberta. He worked for justice through his activism work, usually as lone protester, never doubting the power of one. Thank you, Rob, for joining us today. Now that we have introduced our participants and guests, let's get started with the question. Understanding the concept of bystander and their role in various situations is essential for promoting the sense of responsibility and fostering a safer environment. So, my first question for Ridan is what do you think bystander is? And what is the role of a bystander in a situation?
A bystander is a person that watches another person getting bullied. One of the reasons that bystanders don't interfere is because they might be scared and worried or know they can do something, but they don't. The role of a bystander in a situation is to help the person who is getting bullied without fighting.
All right. Excellent. So, so that's the role of actually bystander in a situation. What they do is they see, and then they don't do anything, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think? Your opinion? In your opinion, is it a right thing?
No.
It's not.
Instead, they should say something or tell trust the adult about what's happening.
Exactly. Or sometimes, if something happens and if you watch it, if you see it's safe, if you're watching, the moment you're watching it, you are a bystander, right? You are a bystander. But if you want to help that person, it's a bullying situation. It depends on the situation, right? If it's a bullying situation, then I would say the first thing Ridan would be doing is, if it is safe for you, right? That I mentioned before. If it is safe, then you try to stop that situation, right? If you cannot, you go and tell somebody, a trusted adult you mentioned before, or your parents or your teachers, right?
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. No, great answer. Thank you so much. So when witnessing a situation that requires intervention, bystanders may face various barriers. And we just talked about this kind of thing. And now my question for Sharon is, what are some common barriers that prevent bystanders from intervening?
So, there are two things which stop them from getting into the situation. First is fear of the fear of making things, worse. Like
Right.
if they intervene, they might make this situation more challenging. But the second one, the most common one, is the fear of you know the fear of becoming a target. If they try to help the other person, they may get be a target of cyberbullying themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or cyberbullying or bullying in person, right? Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's that's a fear that most of the time it works in the person when somebody is a bystander. But trust me, if somebody intervene, 95% time it stops right away. They say the statistics say 95% time, if it is a safer position, you're in a safer position. If somebody intervene, then it stops. So intervening is an option. It is an option, and it's a option that we always should consider. But before we consider that, we always think about that, making sure that um, any consequences, any bad consequence, if it is safe for us. All right, excellent. Anything else you want to add, Sharon, onto this?
No,
All right, excellent. So, intervening as a bystander carries potential consequences that should be considered. So, what are the potential risks and dangers faced by bystanders who intervene?
Okay, so intervening in like a physical situation can put bystanders at a risk of physical harm. They may become targets of aggression or mistakenly get caught in the crossfire. Bystanders who intervene may face verbal or emotional abuse from those involved in the conflict. The culprits may change their aggression from the target to the intervening bystander, resulting in insults, threats, and other forms of verbal abuse. The culprit might target the bystanders who intervene just for revenge.
All right. Yeah, those are the potential risks and dangers. All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for your answer, Adian.
Yeah.
So, for my participants, do you have any questions or comments for? Do you want to add, or any questions for Rob?
No.
no, not really.
No.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So now, I would like to welcome Rob. Rob has listened to you guys, and he will provide some insights and feedback to you and some tips that will be helpful for you on the topic of this bystander. Okay.
My first comment is never participate in the bullying. It's a temptation to all join the gang and be abusive to someone. Never participate. Have the courage to ask yourself, what can I do? And always keep in mind safety first. What can I do safely? Now, there's a number of things that you can do. You can take a pull out your camera and from a distance video what is happening so you may have evidence to report. You can also speak out. You can condemn it, or if you don't feel safe, you can back away and scream, police are coming, police are coming. Sometimes that's enough to make the culprit, the perpetrator, back away and start to run. So think about the number of things that you can do safely and be prepared so when you encounter a bullying situation, you don't have to sit and do nothing. You have to have some kind of an action plan prepared ahead of time so that you can take something to make the situation better. I'm impressed by the words of Elie Wiesel, a Auschwitz camp survivor. And he says, the opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference. Never be indifferent to when you see some sort of bullying or violence or any kind of abuse. Stop and think, what can I do to make it better?
Excellent. True. I agree with you. Rob, do you guys have any other question for Rob?
I have a question about if you're in a bullying situation, it's like physical. Can you still intervene in any other way instead of like actually like telling them to stop? Is there any other way to intervene?
That is always a very important judgment call, and nobody can tell you what to do, but you need to plan ahead of time what to look for. If the person happens to have weapons, then you are not safe to go get involved. If they're going to stab you or hit you with a weapon, but there's things you can do by calling for help or yelling police, something to interfere with the what's going on, maybe to distract people a little bit, and that will not put you at danger. It'll put you can distance yourself from the action, but still create a diversion and hopefully stop the violence from happening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question?
No.
No.
Now,
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
So we have come to the end of this podcast, and I would like to thank our participants, Adian, Ridan, and Sharon. And Rob, thank you so much for joining us today here. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Before we wrap up, I would like to remind our listeners that there are several resources available to help individuals dealing with bullying. The government of Alberta has a bullying helpline. You guys can call 1-888-456-2323. The helpline provides the support and advice to people who experience bullying. Bullying is a violation of human rights. Under no circumstances is bullying acceptable. As a community, we have a shared responsibility to take a stand against bullying and refuse to be bystander. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining in conversation with Manwar Khan, and we will see you next week. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
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 bye.